This is ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage. Connect with us at accnation.net. Listen to our podcast and streaming radio. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on your favorite social media outlet. Now, here's Will and Jim.
Syracuse football. This is ACC Nation's preview of the Syracuse Orange with Brad Bierman, editor of Syracuse on SI, the Juice Online. Welcome, Brad. Thanks for joining us. This is your first time out. And before the show began, we did give you a warning that toward the end, we're going to talk to you about your favorite foods and places to eat and things to eat during the game and at other times too. But right now, let's get into some football. Let's talk about what's in store for fans and opponents of Syracuse this season. Will?
All right, Brad, again, good to meet you. Your first time here, so excited to talk about year number 2 of the Fran Brown era. So let's start on offense. This was a very potent, high-powered offense with Kyle McCord last season. He's now gone, and in steps Steve Angeli. Not for those not familiar with Steve Angeli's game, what does he bring to the table?
Well, first, thanks, Jim. Thanks, Will, for having me on. Love talking football. So close to the season. Such a great time of the year, college football, and Syracuse opening up with Tennessee Saturday in Atlanta, and announcing the quarterback to be Steve Angeli, as you mentioned. And what he's going to bring to Syracuse is kind of leadership and composure that Kyle McCord brought to the team last year, along with a pretty good passing arm. And you go back to Angeli in high school. He's a North Jersey kid, Bergen Catholic, where he was a winner. And he goes to Notre Dame, plays for a program that competed for the national championship. So he's on a winning program and made that big contribution in the semifinal game. And I think when Syracuse came out of spring practice with Ricky Collins, the LSU transfer, anointed the top starter, I think the coaching staff got a little concerned about depth because Collins didn't play in the spring game. He had an injured hand. And when they saw Angeli in the transfer portal, they leaped on him because he brings a veteran composure, leadership, and experience to that position. And he's taken that leadership role in just a couple of months. So I think you're going to see the execution of the offense, maybe not quite as prolific as last season, certainly with McCord, especially early on, but with better talent at wide receiver and a better offensive line, I think Angeli's the right man to lead this offense.
With that, and maybe some more depth on a running back, do you think they could be a little more balanced on offense this year?
I do, because of the offensive line. They brought in 5 new players on the offensive line with 1 holdover. And I think because of that, you're going to see more balance. 2 top running backs in Willis and Nixon, the offensive coordinator's son. And I really love the wide receivers and tight end. Jonte Cook from Texas is really going to have a big year for Syracuse. Guys, he's the type of player coming out of Texas scholastically. Syracuse, maybe now with Fran Brown, wouldn't really have a chance to get out of high school. But now here's a player coming in from Texas. He was one of the great receivers in that room, and I think he's going to have a standout season. He and Angeli are going to form quite a duo. So I'm really happy with the wide receiver play. The tight end, Villari, comes back. The revamped offensive line, yes, I think you're going to see some balance from this offense.
And you mentioned it; they're probably going to go to at least more of a committee at running back this year with Yassine Willis and Will Nixon. Compare and contrast them, and what do they bring to the table?
Well, Willis is a powerful runner, man among boys. And again, with this revamped offensive line, really excited to see what he can do. Very quick and strong for his size. Nixon, a little bit more versatile. What I'd like to see from him is passes out of the backfield, kind of replicating what they did with LaQuint Allen, especially later last season. So the running back room after that, kind of young, but I think you're going to see more passing to both of the backs, more passing to the tight end, and then a lot of play action this year.
So you mentioned they do bring in a couple of receivers out of the portal, even though with the receivers that are gone, it seems like I get the sense you're really high on this group still.
I really am because Gill coming back, Darrell Gill Jr. is the leading returning receiver from the group that departed, and then Justice Ross Simmons has really stepped up his play. They're going to be the two outside receivers with Cook in the slot. I really am, and behind them they have a couple of young players that are going to have to step up. They have two guys that are hurt and aren't going to be able to contribute that we're really developing, but really love the talent in the wide receiver room. And again, I think Angeli is the right guy in the passing game here. Collins is multi-talented. Let's face it, he's a great runner as well. But I think they were just concerned about his arm a little bit and concerned about his inexperience in throwing so few passes in college.
I want to bring this up, and we'll kind of transition as well to defense while we do it. Just kind of looking over some depth charts, and I see a lot of freshmen on this depth chart. Just as and this isn't just exclusive offense, but defense too. Is it likely that we're going to see some freshmen get significant playing time for the Orange this year?
Absolutely. And Demetrius Samuel Jr. is the number one freshman there. He's 17 years old, second youngest player in FBS football, and he's going to start at one of the quarterback spots. And he's also going to play a little bit of wide receiver. So actually going to attempt to be a two-way player in his first year. He got to campus guys at age 16 back in the winter. So amazing how mature he is for his age. And to step right into a starting spot in a power conference team, and then to also play both sides of the football, amazing. But to your point about freshmen in the depth chart, it came up at Fran Brown's initial in-season press conference Monday, in which he talked about wanting to build an SEC caliber roster. And I really would have to say that here in the 25th year of this century, first quarter century of the 2000s, that the depth on this year's team is probably the best that it has been in the last 25 years. It's young and inexperienced, but they've been going to Florida. They're back in Florida, heavy duty in the 26 and 27 classes to really get that speed to compete with the other teams in the southeastern part of the U.S. and in the ACC. And as we said, to try to build an SEC caliber team. So that means size, speed, athleticism, and you're seeing that, albeit for this season, inexperienced players against a very tough schedule.
And as Brad mentioned, he's merely 17 years old. He was born in April 2008, folks. So if you want to feel old, there you go. All right, into defense. I think the one area I think we can all agree on that needs some improvement is just against the run game in general. It was 112th nationally in yards per carry. How much can this improve this season?
Well, I think it's going to improve a lot. The second year with Elijah Robinson, the DC, and they have 8 players up front. So it starts there at the line. Football's won, of course, in the trenches, and they bring back some experience, including Cal transfer Reese and a couple of other guys up front there. I'm a little bit concerned about the linebacker spot, if any place on defense. They brought in Gary Bryant, South Dakota transfer. He's going to start. Derek McDonald's a 3-year starter. So, you're a little bit comfortable with those sort of players and Antoine Sparrow, but there's not a lot of depth there, or the depth is, as we alluded to, young, inexperienced. So a little bit concerned about the run game against the linebacking core, which, as you know, usually ends up with the most tackles on a defense. And really happy with the secondary veteran players there, especially at safety with Chestnut and Grant. But yes, against the run game, there is concern going into the season.
Jim?
One of the things that I guess that we've been encountering a lot of, Brad, is the use of both NIL and the transfer portal especially, and you're pointing out here, and I almost feel like a broken record because every time we do a preview, we start getting into this. It's making an assumption about a team based upon what was last year or the year before is foolhardy, to say the least, because as you point out, there's all these players that are coming in. We don't know truly what this team is going to deliver, And even though, as you and Will are discussing, there's a lot of freshmen, sometimes even that's surprising, depending on that particular player. How has NIL and the transfer portal changed the picture for Q's?
Well, really drastically, because you think about it, Syracuse is a developmental program, right? They're not going to get the 5-star and most 4-star guys. They're just not. As hard as they've tried, and I'll say that, Brown's had success getting closer here in his second year because of his reputation as such an extraordinary recruiter. And so I'm not going to rule out in the future that they're going to inch to some 4 stars and maybe pluck a 5-star guy out once in a while. But that's not the norm, certainly, for Syracuse and the program. So it's a developmental program. They got to find the diamond in the rough type of players. And with that comes development. With that comes, as they progress in the program, comes more NIL payments as their career goes on. For the star players, like every other program in the P5s, you have that budget, and you're going to pay that out for your quarterbacks, receivers, star defensive linemen, and secondary, that sort of thing. Special teams stand out here or there. But yeah, it's really important, and they've been in that fundraising mode like everybody else, with some success for the private school that it is, in getting the roster to where it is. Again, you have quarterbacks from Ohio State last year, McCord, and Angeli from Notre Dame this year. I mentioned a player like Jonte Cook from Texas, a player that they're not normally going to get out of the scholastic ranks. So it's had a tremendous effect. Again, this offensive line is totally rebuilt. And here are the programs the players are from: Alabama, Florida State, Louisville, North Carolina, to go with the one returnee. So Cal on the defensive line, along with a couple of Boston College transfers. So these are all power conference transfers coming into Syracuse, getting playing time, know they're going to compete for starting jobs, know they're going to make a little bit of money there as part of the settlement payment that was administered by the House, and then of course NIL with the different deals. But Syracuse is very strict on all of that here. You've got to be attending classes. It's all got to be documented. So much goes into the financial end of it. And Fran Brown's really downplayed that in 2 years. He knows where it stands in the game. He's realistic, but he has other people handle it because he doesn't want to get caught up in it.
Yeah, smart move. I mean that's the whole purpose of teams bringing in managers and stuff. And now they can focus solely on that kind of stuff, because it really distracts from coaching. To be frank about it. And let me ask you this question, because it's always intrigued me with some programs, and Syracuse is one of them in my mind, the administration and the athletic director. What type of support system is there? And do they have the patience? Because everybody is impatient now, especially with things changing in college sports. Do they have the patience to allow Fran to build over a period of time and say, okay, maybe you'll reach this pinnacle, but you may not reach it every single year, or maybe every couple of years, but that's okay. We're okay with that. Is that the mindset, or is it an unrealistic mindset?
Well, it's an interesting question because, Syracuse is an old school Northeastern institution with administrators wearing navy blue jackets and khaki colored pants. It's not glitzy. It's not Hollywood. It's old school. Yeah. That being said, Fran Brown has adopted the legacy and history of the program unbelievably. I go back to Coach Mack in the 80s, Dick McPherson, who brought Syracuse football in the post-World War II era after Ben Schwartzwalder into national prominence in the 80s, and then Coach Pasqualoni in the 90s. It's uncanny how Fran Brown is almost like a 2020s version of Coach Mack from the 1980s, with the game so different now, with paying players and the transfer portal and all of that. Yet he embraces that. And he's really brought the alumni back into the program. And that has been a major transformation because of the rich history when you look at the players that Syracuse has produced into the NFL. So on the staff this year is none other than Dwight Freeney, who was just inducted into the Pro Football and College Football Hall of Fames. So is there a better mentor or an example to show to players in your program when you bring back a Dwight Freeney and he's going to help the defensive linemen, the young players develop on this program? So the answer is yes. There is the support mechanism from Chancellor Severute, Athletic Director John Wildak, and the donors. There's a new football performance center that just opened that's as state-of-the-art as any in the country. So everything's going in that direction. The big advantage of playing in the Dome, and they've got to take that advantage, and Fran Brown senses it, and take advantage of that. So yes, there is patience, especially this season. If they didn't go to a bowl game, there'd be a little bit of unrest because there's so many bowl games, but they would have patience. And he's developing this program. Again, the recruiting for 26 is off the charts as compared to what it's been, and even into 27. So yes, the answer is the support is there. Everyone's behind him. And it's just a matter of, as successful as they want to be, and as Fran wants to be, will they be able to, keep him there as a lifetime type of coach if he has the success that he's envisioned he wants to bring there? And guys, let me be clear about that. He wants to make the college football playoffs this year, and he's not going to be happy if they don't. And that may be a bold statement, but that's how he thinks. I mean, last year with the 3 defeats, he admitted that Bill O'Brien outcoached him in the loss to Boston College. He admitted he had a first-year coaching rookie mistake in the loss to Stanford, and he knows that they had a fluky bad game at Pitt, a team that's beaten them a lot in the last 20 years. So other than that, he's thinking W's. He's just thinking college football playoffs coming from his Georgia background, and that's how his mind is set.
Very few people have the self-insight to look in a mirror and go, I'm the problem, or, this is the problem and I can fix it and learn from it. So it's really encouraging to hear you talk about Coach Fran that way, because it says a lot about what he's capable of doing, and having more confidence in the overall program, I think, by looking at somebody who approaches life in that fashion. I think that he'll have a lot of success. So, Brad, we're going to go through the schedule. Oh boy, this first game. Okay. We're going to go thumbs up, thumbs down, and we're going to do the Will Waggle. We're not really sure. We got a variation thrown in the other night. It's angles. Different. This is all projections. We're here talking about, what could be, what might be, what we think, what we'd like to see. And be realistic about each one of these games as well. So let's start out with this first one. Taking on number 24, Tennessee. The game's going to be in Atlanta. Hey, you're closer now, so that's going to make it easier to pop down there. Mm-hmm. Saturday, August 30th, this game is going to be a nooner. It's going to be on ABC. It's Syracuse in Atlanta to take on Tennessee. Ooh, this could be interesting. Hey, and if Syracuse pulls off a win here, wow. A thumbs up, thumbs down, or a Will's waggle?
I'm going to think this one's going to come down to the end. I'm going to think Tennessee pulls it out, late field goal, something that Syracuse really battles them the entire game. Because, as we talked about a few minutes ago, you don't know what teams are like coming into the season that first game, nope. Especially with transfer quarterbacks on both ends. And so a neutral crowd, partisan to Tennessee. But I like Syracuse to come out very strong in this game and to be really close. I'm not a betting man, but I know it's like 2 touchdowns, but I think it'd be definitely closer than that. And coming down to a late field goal with Tennessee breathing a big sigh of relief and Syracuse kind of feeling like, you know what? We have a lot of faith in ourselves this season.
There you go. That's a good way to look at things. If it doesn't come out on the winning side, if you're keeping it close and if you're delivering, I think that's a really good indicator of where you're going for the rest of the season. Saturday, September 6th, at home, a lot of home games on schedules this season. I don't know how they worked that out, but it just happened. UConn, that's a 12 o'clock game. That's going to be on the ACC network streaming, and UConn can be a little bit of a pain or a thorn in the side. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. So let's not overlook them. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or
I'm going to give a thumbs up on that, but again, in a very close game. Love the job Jim Mora Jr. has done at Connecticut. It's really a underdog type program with a bulldog bite, and they gave Syracuse trouble last year in the Dome. Really important for Syracuse to win its Dome games. You mentioned they usually like to have actually 7 home games, did last year, but have 6 this year with the Tennessee game in Atlanta, and they've got to take advantage of that Dome field advantage. And I'm going to give them a close game, but pulling it out by 4 under a touchdown versus Connecticut.
Okay. It speaks highly of UConn, as you just indicated. Next game on the 12th, it's also at home. It's against Colgate. That's a 7 p.m. game. That'll be on the ACC network.
And they like to give Colgate a payday, keep it upstate New York there, and get a win at the same time. And so a lot of those young players that Will was alluding to, those freshmen, are going to see action in that ball game, and Syracuse is going to wallop the Raiders.
It's a Friday night game, so prime time is never a bad time. This next game is a real challenge here. Saturday, September 20th. It is at Clemson, and we were talking about the hospitality of South Carolinians before we got on the show. It may not be so hospitable in Death Valley. Syracuse has been known to give Clemson a hard time. What do you see here?
I'm seeing the same sort of thing. Syracuse is going to be pumped and ready for this game. And in the end, they're going to get out-talented, if you will, on a few clutch plays in the fourth quarter and give it their all. Now, game time hasn't been announced. If it's an afternoon game, could be hot there and tough for defenses to stay on the field. But, I like how Clemson's put together its team with all the players that have stayed and the veterans they have at the key positions. And I'll give Clemson to pull that one out. Syracuse, another tough battle, but a tough road loss.
Yeah, Clemson's always good at having that depth and the next man up, so that works very well for them. Saturday, September 27th, back home, and it's against Duke.
And this is a peer program in the ACC for Syracuse. And as they did last year, beating Georgia Tech in the Dome, I think they'll do that and win their first league game at home this season against Duke in a close game, very closely matched teams. But I give Syracuse that Dome advantage. I think the crowds will be packing in the Dome this year, giving them good support. And, guys, when that new roof was built 2 years ago, it holds that noise in there. So when they get it going, and that really is a big advantage. And it's going to be important for Syracuse to take advantage of that this season, but I see them doing that against Duke.
Next up is Saturday, October 4th, going to travel to Texas to take on SMU. This is a challenging team, and we're not really sure what's coming back. We know it's not the same team. But like you're mentioning about Syracuse, working the transfer portal and everything, so who knows?
As a long season goes, I see this game projecting out early here as one of those it got away from us and went downhill, a snowball game, if you will, and where they fall behind early, just isn't one of their days against a very good team at home. And I see this as kind of like the Pittsburgh game last year where mistakes, trailed early. It was a one-sided game. Kind of see that maybe happening against SMU in Dallas.
Okay. It's going to be a bye right after that. That might be a good thing because up next will be the fine folks from Pitt that you were just mentioning a second ago. On Saturday, October 18th, it's a home game. Pitt comes to visit the Dome.
And it's, again, good that they get them in the Dome. When the teams met 2 years ago, the game was at Yankee Stadium, celebrating the 100th anniversary of the first college football game at the old Yankee Stadium. And Syracuse came out with a win 2 years ago. Pitt, of course, as I mentioned, forced all those turnovers last year in winning pretty easily. But again, at home, I think Syracuse is going to win in a very close game, taking advantage of the home crowd and taking advantage of knowing that this is one of those Northeast recruiting rival teams they have to beat because they face on the recruiting trail.
Yeah. Let's pause there for just a second. We were talking about the Northeast and the fact that you've moved from the Northeast down to Charlotte and whatnot, and but when I was growing up, and I'm sure you too, the Northeast was a very fertile ground for some really good football players, and you don't hear people, at least in some of the circles that I'm in, talking about Northeast recruitment the way it used to be. Are we missing something, or have things changed?
Well, that's why Fran Brown went back from Georgia up to Syracuse, being a Camden, New Jersey native and growing up there, because he knew again, going back to Coach Mack and Coach Pasqualoni's recruiting philosophy in the 80s, 90s, when they had some pretty good players, 6-hour radius from Syracuse, 6-hour drive, get all those players. So that's Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, some pretty good players in those states, Maryland, DMV, in the DC area as well. So some pretty good players in that 6-hour radius, combined now with having success in Florida. So yeah, they're all about the Northeast. I mean, that's Kyle McCord was from New Jersey, Steve Angeli from New Jersey, the coaching staff from New Jersey. You look at the roster from New Jersey or from Philadelphia. So very important to Coach Fran. He wants to own it. And he knows he's competing against Narduzzi at Pitt, O'Brien at BC, Mora at Connecticut to some degree, the service academies, and then, of course, Maryland and Rutgers from the Big Ten. So, yeah, he's all about Northeast recruiting.
Interesting. We'll see how successful he is in the years to come, because, like I said, I just remember some of the tough players that would come out of the Northeast, Pennsylvania and whatnot. I mean, there was some of the grittiness of the players is what I always remembered.
Jim Brown, Ernie Davis, yeah, Floyd Little.
Yeah. There you go. There's three. So, and boy, do they stand out. On Saturday, October 25th, at Georgia Tech. This could be an interesting matchup. Georgia Tech is. Yeah. What do you think there?
Yeah, this was a 3-point game in the Dome a year ago, and Coaches Brown and Key don't like each other. So there's a little bit of a grudge going on there. And this is going to be a tough ACC road game. Syracuse has not done well on the road since they joined the ACC historically. A little bit better with Fran Brown after 1 year. It was a little bit better under Dino Babers. But, yeah, they don't play well on the road and haven't played well at Georgia Tech in 2 previous games there. So I'm going to have to say probably end up a close loss.
Okay. All right, up next, home game, and it's on October 31st. It's a Friday game. This is already logged in for an ESPN telecast. It's 7:30, North Carolina. I have worn out Darth hoodie in our preview, so that's the last time I'm going to say it. I promise. Okay. And Will can smack me if I say it again. So, but
really cool.
We don't really know what North Carolina is going to look like. There's a lot of potential, but hey.
Well, on this game, guys, this is a Friday night, as you mentioned, and I want to get back to the 6 home games for Syracuse this year. It was important to them to have 2 of those games on Friday night, Colgate and North Carolina, also to draw more crowd, for those games. And, of course, you get that TV coverage and exposure. Right. Now, the game we're talking about is Halloween night. The Dome will be absolutely crazy for a 7:30 kickoff. People will be out tailgating from 2:30 on. So I also think what you're going to see here is Fran Brown is very traditional when it comes to uniforms. He's not an alternate uniform guy. He's not about wearing black if your school colors aren't. He's the traditional home jersey, traditional. That's all they wore last year. Much of the fan base really appreciates that. I'm kind of thinking, though, for this Halloween night game, He's going to let his players wear an all orange jersey because, after all, it's Halloween and they're the orange. And the crowd's going to be wearing orange. And North Carolina may come out and it's Carolina blue. So you'll have blue versus orange. And it's going to be really emotional. It's going to be really nuts. And Syracuse is going to win because they're going to take advantage of playing at home and they're going to beat Bill Belichick in the tournament.
So does that mean Fran Brown's going to come out in a hoodie for Halloween?
Could be. Could be. That's pretty funny, and that's not. That wouldn't be put past Fran Brown.
There's a plan that needs to be passed along if he hadn't already thought about it. Yeah. Next up on Saturday, November 8th, traveling down to Miami. Not a bad time of year to catch a little warmth, but Miami, again, we don't know. Been a lot of talk about this team being, top 15, but, the folks who make polls have been moving them around all over the place. Who knows why? Polls don't mean much at this time of the year.
I'm with you on that weather because early November in South Florida is absolutely gorgeous, right? So I'm going to make that trip from Charlotte to watch that game and watch the Dolphins, of which I'm a fan of, the next day against Buffalo. So make it a little Miami football weekend at Hard Rock. And if everything projects out and Miami's having a great season like they're projected to be, I see this, unfortunately, as a revenge game from last year in the Dome. And that Cristobal has them really pumped up for what happened last year and keeping them out of the CFP. And again, Syracuse has tough results on the road. Think they'll play pretty well, but I give Miami the victory in that game.
Okay. And November 29th, Saturday, at home against Bill O'Brien and Boston College. This should be an interesting matchup.
Yep, that's the season finale there on the 29th against BC in the Dome right after Thanksgiving. Before that, guys, they play Notre Dame on the 22nd. I wanted to make sure we got that game in.
I missed that one.
NBC 3:30. So
let's back
at Notre Dame first, then host BC to finish the season. So Notre Dame, if everything projects out, would be a tough one also to win there on the road. And, then coming back to BC. A team that Syracuse is going to have a little bit of revenge from last year and play well against them in the Dome. So I see of those 6 home games, a really good shot to win all 6, maybe lose one, but I think win all 6. So that is potentially what we're looking at 6-6 to 7-5 if they get an unexpected win on the road somewhere, and whether that be Georgia Tech or Miami. I don't know about winning at Notre Dame. But that's where I'm kind of projecting this out, just based on the strength of schedule and where some of these teams project going into the season.
All right. Didn't mean to skip over the Irish there. That's obviously an interesting game as well. I just, it's not part of the ACC.
You're showing your disrespect to them, Jim.
Sometimes they're part of the ACC, right?
Sometimes.
But,
it depends.
Yeah, sometimes we'll claim them, sometimes we won't. And vice versa. I think they have a harder time claiming us, to be honest with you. So,
they need those 5 games against the ACC.
They do.
I mean, they need the inventory, of course, for NBC. And, as an independent in this new CFP setup, they need as many quality wins as they can get. So it behooves them to, I believe, have that. And I don't think they're ever going to leave, not with that NBC contract, but stranger things have happened.
Yeah. Never know. It's who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. That is, look at our schedule here. We've got Notre Dame and then Boston College, as Brad pointed out there. So sorry again, I skipped over that. Sometimes I will do that. I don't know if that's a conscious thing or not, or or subconscious thing. So who knows? Anyway, Brad, as I warned you at the very front end of things, let's talk a little bit about food here. First timers on the program, typically we'll get you at some point or another. I figured this would be a good time to get you because it's football week. This is week 1. Okay. And this is when, the majority of everything gets cranked up. So There's lots of good food out there just waiting to be consumed, and sometimes there's a favorite type of food for uh, grilling, or maybe just sitting back on the couch and snacking, or something that you really enjoy when you're at a game, or maybe a restaurant that you like to go to. Feed us.
Well, guy, I lived in Syracuse for 15 years.
Hmm?
And of course, that's pretty close to Buffalo. And we all know that the world famous wings were invented in 1964 at the Anchor Bar in Buffalo. And so that whole wing culture spreads down the thruway to Syracuse. So I more enjoy boneless wings and I like them hot, but I certainly love really good cooked fresh wings from having lived in upstate New York for 15 years. Then I lived in Philadelphia for 30. So
Hmm.
you can kind of guess living in Philly what you like with a cheesesteak. And there's so many good places that all begin with some guy's first name, whether that's Pat's or Gino's or Jim's or Steve's or whatever it may be. And what's interesting is you find a lot of stadiums around the country serve cheesesteaks. And depending where they are geographically around the country, they're good or they're bad or they're really bad. And I always enjoy a good cheesesteak, really well cooked and really all about the roll, right? The roll makes the
That's right.
sandwich, and find places that really concentrate on the roll. And one good thing I found about the Southeast, you have so many transplants from cities in the Northeast that these people start family businesses in these cities. So you can have a taste to warm your heart when you live in a Charlotte and you're feeling like a cheesesteak, believe it or not, because they're having Licio rolls from Philly and they're trying to copy it almost exactly like they do. So I like a good cheesesteak, love a good char grilled burger, love pizza burgers, mozzarella cheese on that burger, little sauce on the side, toasted bun. That is really good. So those are a
Hmm.
couple of my favorites. And anytime any of the schools have a ag school on campus serving that fresh ice cream, Penn State's legendary, a couple other places. Certainly love that as a treat.
No problem with any of that here. I do have a question for you. You know, I love a good, and my wife does too, a good Philly cheesesteak. But I do find so many variations. I've got a good friend who grew up in Philly, who took me around to a couple of places when we were younger, and I noticed that the cheesesteaks that they make in Philly, the original types, are completely different than a lot of what I eat elsewhere. And it has to do with the cheese. So tell me your favorite approach to the Philly cheesesteak.
Well, that's interesting because there are two kinds of cheesesteaks, I believe. I've always said this in Philly. One where they cook all the meat on the grill and then load that meat into a sandwich, versus the other places that cook the meat individually and then put those pieces of meat into the sandwich. The latter is the way I like it, individual cooked pieces instead of just pouring it all on there. And most places don't serve mozzarella, they all serve provolone. But there's a few in Philly. Steve's Prince of Steaks is my favorite still in Philly because they serve their pizza steak with mozzarella, and just their sauce is so tangy. Cut it in half because it's so long and gooey, so you can get your hands around it. That's the way I like it. I'm not an onion guy. I'm not a more condiment guy. Pretty plain. But there's just something. Again, it's all about the roll, guys. It's got to hold the ingredients just right
That's right. That's right. I
to enjoy.
fully appreciate that from the Philly cheesesteak standpoint. Also, because my wife is from New Orleans, we do po' boys all the time, and it is about the bread. It's just that simple, you know. Uh,
And they say the old rumor is the water in the Northeast is just a certain way that you can't replicate that in other parts of the country. I don't believe that to be true. I've had pretty good tasting pizza, for example, in Seattle, L.A., Miami, as well as Boston, New York, or New Haven.
there you go.
But yeah, it's just part of the culture, and I think that's what I love about the country. I've traveled to all 50 states, wanted to do it, and we just have such a great country here with all the diversity and the culture, and that's what makes it great. Eating po' boys in New Orleans or eating lobster in Maine.
Oh, there you go. Boy, I'm just going to have to go out and grab something here. couple of minutes. This is ridiculous, and I've already eaten dinner.
Yes.
Well, you warned me before the show that we were
Yeah.
going to be going this direction. I started to have some stomach growls.
Well, that's what it's all about. Some good recommendations, some good thoughts there on food to chow down on, and I'm with you there on the wing approach as well too. So I want to get right down to the nitty gritty and do it quick and keep moving. So, Will, any last questions or thoughts or comments?
I'm hungry right now, though. Actually, yeah. Well, let me just get one last question before we end it here, and I want to go back to you. You've kind of mentioned a little bit the recruiting and how Fran Brown and staff have been able to get some 4 and 5 stars in. Obviously, they've done that with this upcoming 26 class. Now, we've got to be real. 3.5 months to signing date, anything can change. How has Fran Brown been able to get these like highly touted kids to commit to Syracuse?
Great question. And Jim kind of alluded to it before, how he keeps it real. He's all about Dart. His philosophy is about players that are going to be dedicated to the program, trustworthy, responsible, and accountable, and all about faith. He's a big man of faith. So he's been able to go out and identify players and really get in tight with their families and really show them and pitch his way of turning them into a man. And he's now developed a program to where players, are either going to be drafted in the NFL or going to have an opportunity for a job out of college within a certain time frame of graduating school. So he's all about building players, student athletes, and as men. And that pitch in his recruiting has really resonated with parents of these athletes. And so he's been able to go out and find talented players to zero in on, sell his story, and bring the parents in. And it's all about developing these people as a man. And he just tells his own story, from when he was growing up in Camden and all he had to go through with all the hardships and how he persevered to become the man he is today and become a head coach. Don't forget, guys, he called Syracuse. They didn't call him. So he was the one with his representatives that reached out when he saw that opening was there at the end of the 23 season. And, it was not a phone call that John Wildack was expecting. And when he got it and heard the pitch from Fran Brown, well, the top recruiter that he is with his players, he became a top recruiter for Syracuse University's administration.
There you go. Good elevator pitch. So
he's amazing. He really is. I mean, he keeps it real and he doesn't care. You don't want to play there. This was done a certain way at your previous school. He doesn't care. We don't have time to worry about that. We're doing this and now. He's about winning now. He really is. And he takes offense at not winning. His famous quote last year, losers don't shower,
Right.
It went viral. That's him. That's Fran Brown. He can't understand losses, can't figure that out because that's that Georgia philosophy that was bred into him as assistant there under Kirby Smart.
Yeah, that's will take him a long way, I would imagine. The editor of Syracuse on SI, the Juice Online, Brad Bierman. Thank you, sir, for joining us and sharing some thoughts and insights into Syracuse football and also some good eats as well. So glad you could join us.
My pleasure, Jim and Will. Great meeting you as well, and want to do it again sometime soon.
ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage with Will and Jim. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on our podcast, streaming radio, and YouTube. Connect with us on Blue Sky, Reddit, Instagram, Threads, Mastodon, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn.